Hello and welcome. Yeah, we're good. Hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle. My name is Alan Hyde, and tonight we have a very distinguished guest. Our guest tonight is not only an author, but a psychologist with a doctorate in psychology, and her name is Dr. LaFonya Jones-Hines.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Hello, Breaking Cycles family.
Yeah. As we get into this, guys, we're going to talk about Dr. Jones-Hines' book, the Facilitator Guide, the Participant Guide, and the Journal of Addiction Hurts Everyone. Mm-hmm. And you guys can see it here. There's a picture on the screen, but I was just telling Dr. Jones-Hines how beautiful the cover is.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it kind of, when you guys sent it over, it really grasped my attention.
That's what we was going for. And so let me make a correction because, ethics, So I do have my doctorate degree in clinical psychology, yes, but I do operate under my LPC.
Gotcha.
But I'm still a therapist and I'm still a doctor. Yeah. But I just wanted to, ethics.
Yeah. And you co-own a private practice called Balance Beacon in Euless, Texas.
Yes, correct? Yes. So we've been in practice for 8 years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, it's amazing, but it's hard.
Yeah. You guys have a full staff there too. I saw on the website.
Yes, we do. Yeah. We do. But it's beautiful. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Yeah. I love working in a private practice that I own. Yeah,
it's a whole nother ball field.
Yes, it is. It is. You guys, we're in Texas, so if you see me pick up my little fan, it's because it's hot in Texas, y'all. Yeah. So don't mind me.
And it is hot in this room. We're going to get to know all about Dr. Jones-Hines tonight, not just her love for fans here, but so what? Yes. For those who don't know you, what drew you in the direction of working with addictions and the family disease of alcoholism and creating a practice around that and writing a book on it?
Ooh, God. So let me elaborate. So my intentions were to go to school to become an attorney. That's what I wanted to do. But as we know, when you get your bachelor's degree, you can't do anything with a bachelor's degree in mental health. Well, not anything that I really wanted to do, I guess. Right. So my senior year of my undergrad program, one of my professors came to me and said, well, you're going to have to go get your master's degree. For what? Because you can't do anything with your bachelor's in psychology. Great. So then I had to pivot and go get my master's degree in professional counseling so that I could work my way, because I thought I was going to work my way through law school. But then my father, after I got my first master's, he was like, so when you going back to get your doctorate? I said, I'm not. And he said, yes, you are. God already told me that you're going. I said, well, I need God to stop talking to you because I'm not going. But then God told me. So then I went back, and hence now I'm a doctor. And then I did not want to work with addiction because my mother is a recovering addict. And I had that locked back here in the file. Did not know where the key was and didn't want to find the key. And I was asleep one night after I graduated. I was asleep one night. I had a dream that this company was going to call me for an interview. Did not remember that I had applied for this job. Didn't know if this company was a real company. When I woke up, I looked it up, and it was a real company. It was a rehab. So I was like, okay, God, who is this for? So who am I supposed to interpret this dream for? Because it's not for me. I don't want to work with addicts. And 10 minutes after I closed my laptop, the phone rang, and it was that company. So I had the interview, and I still was like, yeah, no, this is not for me. I don't want to do it. So I was like, still trying to pray God out of that decision. And so he was like, no, that's where you're going. And so I went, and I was there for maybe about 3 or 4 years. And they had an opportunity for me in Arizona to be the family therapist. So I went to Arizona, became the family therapist. And when I got there, it was maybe only like 10 family members participating, and they had given me like these worksheets and things to, work with the families with. And I was like, okay. And so I told them, I was like, if I'm going to grow this program and actually work this program, y'all going to have to give me a really light to no caseload of, the addicts to work with. I need to be able to focus on the family. So they agreed they would give me a low caseload. So as they were doing that, I was like, okay. So I decided that the worksheets that they had given me wasn't enough. I'm not saying it wasn't good enough, but worksheets are worksheets,
Yeah.
So I started implementing the things that I put in my book, because I wanted to see if what I was thinking and what I kept hearing from the participants were things that other family members needed to actually work on. Yeah. So I found I kept doing kind of the same things with different cohorts, and it was working. So what I did was I got a survey, and I asked them for their feedback, and I did not look at the surveys. I gave them all to my supervisor because I didn't want to, bias it. So I gave them all to her, and she called me in her office, and she said, yeah, she was reading it. She said, yeah, they just say they want more of you. So I was like, okay, so something I'm doing is working.
Yeah.
So then that's when I put everything into the book, and the book was birthed.
Yeah. And it's like, as I'm developing ideas of like, what am I going to ask Dr. Jones-Hines? It's like, well, what made you want to be an author? But there it is. It's like you were having these experiences with your clients, and there's nothing more real than when you're in the trenches with the clients and they say, we want more of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because even when I do the groups now, before I had the paper documents, but I didn't have the book published yet. And even when I was still kind of just doing it, when I came back to Texas, it was like, yeah, where's this? Where can I buy this?
Yeah.
So that pushed me even more to get it published and get it in a book form, so that when I taught the classes, they had, something tangible to take home with them to, continue to study, to continue to read. Because the thing that comes with this book is I try to touch all senses, right? So I have something for them to see visually. I make bracelets as well. I should have worn one so y'all can see it. But I make bracelets as well because, a lot of family members, they get anxious when they start talking about this stuff because they've never talked about it before. They didn't realize these things were happening to them. And so I tried to get something for them to be able to touch and kind of play with while they're reading about them and thinking about their answers and things like that. And then I also make candles because I wanted them to also have something sensory to be able to smell to help them calm down as they're getting anxious and answering these questions. Yeah. So I tried to do all senses.
And I saw that on your website. And so for those listening, we'll have those links and stuff that you can get in touch with Dr. Jones-Hines to find the candles and the bracelets and the books. Where else could they find the book if they were just kind of searching the internet and such and they were having a hard time finding the website or something?
Well, if you're in Texas, you can reach out to me at Balance Beacon, and I can either meet you or something. Or mail it to you. I can also mail it to you. So if you find me on Facebook or Instagram Facebook or Instagram, you can DM me and I can mail it to you because I do mail products as well.
Absolutely. And when we share this around, we'll have your Facebook in there too.
Okay.
So you mentioned in your bio, you've been in the field working with families and addictions for 15 years.
No. I've been in the field for 15 plus years. Gotcha. I've been working with families and addicts for, probably about 10, maybe 9 to 10.
Gotcha. Which is still a huge chunk of time.
Yeah.
I'm curious, just kind of some of the shifts and changes as you've interacted with this that you've kind of seen, just as we develop as clinicians too, but as you've ridden these waves and just kind of some of the changes.
I think this field is a slow burn. They're a slow cooker. I don't really see, especially with families receiving the healing that they need, I still don't see much movement there.
Yeah.
And that's really sad to say, because when you think about the individual that's using substances, they have wreaked havoc in most of every area of their lives. And because of that, like, the people that they have interacted with need the healing that they're going to get when they go to rehab. When with individuals using substances, or with any addiction, They go to treatment. They get 7, 14, 21, 28, 30 days of treatment. And some treatment facilities now have gone longer. But when I was working in rehabs, that's the length of time that they would get. They get that length of time for treatment. But then the family members would only get 4 days.
Yeah.
That's not enough to do anything.
Right.
You know, and in order for the person that's addicted to something, when they come home to chaos. Because if the family does not get treated, they're still chaotic.
Yeah.
Because that's the way it was created. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
The homeostasis, yeah.
Yes. The balance is off completely.
Yeah, or the balance, you know, I talk with a lot of clients about this, or the balance is chaos. And when you're getting your treatment and you're stepping away from it, if no one else got the treatment, they'll suck you right back into it.
Yep. And it's a sure trigger for the person using substances to blame the family member. Well, since you didn't believe that I was going to stay sober anyway, I may as well just do it. Or, you know, when the person who is using substances have a new normal. So they have to go to 12-step meetings. They have a sponsor. You know, they have this new routine. They go to therapy. And now, especially, I see this a lot when it's a couple, and the spouse, I'll say the husbands. When the husband has to go to a 12-step meeting and they talking to their sponsor a lot, and the wife is like, well, why you always talking to your sponsor? How come you always on the phone with them? I thought you said that y'all was going to be out of y'all's meeting at 8:00. It's 10:00. Where did y'all go after?
Yeah. In the recovery circles, we have this saying, when my alcoholic got better, I got worse.
Yes. That's good. I love that. I'm gonna steal it.
You just like nailed that. That's exactly what happens. And you have that experience in my private practice. It's having to teach the family member detachment of, like, they're out there trying to get better.
Yep.
You know, and if we don't allow that and give them the dignity, they'll get right back where they were. And
now what happens is the person using substances now becomes the punching bag of the family. And it's hard. If you're the punching bag, it's hard to heal. It's hard for you to heal in a place where you cause destruction.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard for the family to heal with the person that caused the destruction.
Yeah. You know, it's the lashing out of the chaos we were talking about. It's like the pain has to go somewhere, and that's why the family needs the treatment. And so, you know, when I found your information, when I was looking for guests, I was like, this is exactly what we need to have on this show, and just to talk about it more and more and more, because you're absolutely right. Not a lot has changed for the family member in the bigger picture of addiction in this country.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I think there is a lot of treatment for the person using substances, but there's not a lot of follow through afterwards. Yeah.
Have you ever looked into at all the brain disease model and how it talks about, I figured as much, how we can offer maybe up to 90 days of treatment, but the brain needs up to 36 months to fully heal.
Yep.
And it's like, what do you do with that gap? And we know that really the only other recourse we have is 12-step recovery. But, you know, let's say someone is having a hard time with recidivism, coming in and out and in and out of treatment. It's like, what do we do?
So one of the things that, like when I was working at a rehab, I used to work with my clients a lot on how to change their behaviors that was attached to the addiction. So I always give this analogy. Excuse me. So, you know, Spider-Man, right? The red and blue Spider-Man. And then you know Venom, right?
Yeah.
So when Venom attached himself to Peter Parker, it was like when he was trying to get Venom off of him, he was fighting for dear life.
Yeah.
So the red and blue Spider-Man is the Spider-Man that everybody loves. He's the hero. He does well for the community, but Venom is the one that everybody hates, right? So Venom is the addiction, and the red and blue Spider-Man is the person that you love. So when you come out of treatment, you have to work and continue to fight for dear life to keep venom off of you, because all while you're in that bubble, it's good for you. It's easy for you to be Spider-Man, the red and blue Spider-Man. But when you come out, Venom is out there with them big old muscles. He done did some push-ups. He done did some weightlifting classes. He done did some Zumba. He done did some, because he ready. So you have to make sure that when you come out of treatment, you have to change those behaviors. So when I was working in rehab, I used to work on their behaviors. Yeah, we used to work on the addiction and focusing on that and making sure they had to create a new normal and everything. But what these behaviors that came with venom, what were those? Were you stealing? Were you cheating? Were you lying? Were you manipulating? Let's work on that, because if you only work on the addiction while you're in treatment, you're going to go back out because you still have those same behaviors, and those same behaviors are going to drive you right back to your addiction.
Yeah. You know, my therapist always says it had nothing to do with the substance. You know, when I was looking at like my loved ones who were struggling, it was never the substance. It was the behaviors. It was all of the defects, and the whole family has them. You know, and that, you know, being a therapist, by the time I started looking at these things, that was a hard pill to swallow and digest, of like, oh man, I'm sick too, you know, and I need support too.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that I teach. It's in my book. So you got to buy the book, and I'm not going to tell you everything. So but I usually, when I do my class, I show this, I'll show it to you. I show this graph that shows how the family mirror the addict. So it's the addicts and the non-addicts. I'll show the camera just so y'all can see it a little bit. I don't know if I'm high enough, but it shows the addicts and non-addicts, and you see, and every time and it's in the participants guide too. And so every time I do the class, I ask them, so what do you see? And they say, they look just alike. Yeah. And they're shocked by it. And I was like, well, you had to learn how to survive. It's survival of the fittest. It is. You have to learn how to survive when you have someone in your life that you love and you communicate with or interact with on a regular basis or a daily basis that have these behaviors. You have to learn how to survive. And so before you know it, which is why it's so important for family members to get treatment, because they don't even realize they're doing this. Yeah. You know, when we experience that pain, whatever it is, early in life that would cause us to go down those paths, we end up at these inevitable similar junctures. They just found a substance that worked for them. They got addicted there, and we got addicted to them and trying to get them to stop. I talked about that in my book. I figured. Yes. Yes, you do. Their addiction is to the substance or the gambling or whatever their addiction is, and your addiction is to them. And that's why it's so difficult for family members to stop what they're doing, because they, just like addicts, they think that if they keep doing it, they'll get some results. Addicts, if they keep doing, they'll get their original high, which they won't. They will never get that original high again. But that's why they keep chasing it. Yeah. They'll get high, but they won't get that original high. Yeah. And maybe this one we would have to kick around for some time. And so if you don't have like a super in-depth answer to this, but what do you think is that original high for the family member that isn't using the substances, that hooks them into that process? I think it's the shock and unbelief. Wow. Yeah. They're shocked that they have a loved one that's addicted to something, and then the unbelief that they didn't know. Yeah. And then it's the denial of, it can't be that bad. They must just drink, one beer, or it's not that bad. And so because of those three things, the shock, the unbelief, and the denial, they continue to try to hide it. Yeah. They continue to lie about it. They continue to make excuses for them. They continue to enable them, because there's no reason why you should be calling your partners or family or whoever job to say, oh, he's sick, so he won't be able to make it today. Right. When you know he hung over from whatever they were doing last night, or she's hungry. Why are you doing that? So now you are drawn into their world to become dishonest.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw in the mirror here, it's like that's where we would then go from the denial to the manipulation. You're manipulated to manipulate, right? It's like now you're calling the employer, so you're manipulating them with non-truths.
Yep.
And at some point, and this is what I love about human behavior is no one gets away with anything. At some point, you're going to have to look at this, and this is why I like that there's that faith piece for you and a lot of what I've read that you've sent over. And obviously, as you were introducing yourself, it's like we can't do that alone.
No. And the thing about it is we can't do it alone. And I don't think family members understand that, because they attribute what they're experiencing to their own demises or their own stress, or that, because like when I started working with the family members, they didn't even realize that they were depressed, not because of themselves, but because of what's going on in their life. They didn't even realize that they were anxious, not because of what's going on with you, but because of what's going on in your environment.
Yeah.
And it's causing, I had a family one time. She had, I think, 2 children that were in recovery at the same time.
Yeah. And
she was like, she had never had high blood pressure before. She had never had problems with high glucose or, anything like that. But now she does. Yeah. And the amount of stress that family members experience and they don't deal with the right thing. The right thing that's causing the stress, that's causing the anxiety, that's causing the depression. So what they keep doing is they work on whatever is going on with them in their own lives, and then not work on the stuff that's really going on with them. And they wonder why either therapy is not working, the medication is not working, I'm working out and it's not working. They're trying everything except for working on the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of roots to this, but a big part of that is the spiritual malady. There's a disconnection in that, the spiritual sense of what's going on and the honesty around that and how important it is.
Yes. And, I think it depends on the culture.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I know in the African American culture, we'll say, well, we'll just pray about it. And I love God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. That's my dude right there. So I love him. But what you have to remember is he put us on this earth for a reason. He gave us the gift to be able to help people through a journey that may be difficult for them to do on their own. So if he put us here for a reason and he gave us this gift, then that means he wants us to utilize this gift to help people through this journey. So, but with the African American culture, I'ma just pray about it, and God is gonna work it out. Well, God working it out may mean you coming to see me, them coming to see you, so we can help you work it out. Yeah,
it's taking the indicated steps. It's in The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, when the kid is telling the joke, he said, the guy gets to heaven, I threw you 3 life vests, you idiot.
Right. I completely agree with that, because I think people think see God as a magician. And granted, I believe in miracles and things like that, and God can do it, but sometimes everything ain't gonna be a miracle. Yeah. Some things you're going to have to walk this thing out. You're going to have to get some steps, get some guidance, get some journey about you. Faith without works is dead. That's right. So you got to do some work with this faith that you have in your prayer.
Yeah. And I'm sure you see this a lot in your practice too, but the further this career develops, miracles start to become more and more practical looking. Right. The real miracle is that work that person put in for years to change their life, and the fact that they can see that.
Yeah. No, I agree. But you know what? The spiritual attachment to that is God led you to it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, even if the miracle is that you see the changes that you're making, you see the growth in your family, you see the healing in your family, that's still what you prayed for. Mm-hmm. So it's not that God wasn't in it. He just used another avenue. He didn't do it. He just didn't drop it on your lap and say, be healed.
Yeah.
You know, because some of these things that we go through, it's a journey for us to get to the end point so that God gets the glory in the end. Mm-hmm. So if we can give God the glory in the end, and we can see God through the whole journey, because some people give up on God. And when he's really guiding you in the direction that he needs you to go in order for you to get to where he wants you to be.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's always, I'll hear, because I work with a lot of people in AA, 12-step recovery. It's like, well, what if I turn my will over to God and then I have to give up the things that I enjoy? And, you know, a guy that I really, you know, just look up to years ago, he told me, you know, God's never going to ask you to denounce all of your, you know, worldly possessions and move to some third world country to evangelize, because there's someone who wants to do that already. So he's going to ask them. He's going to keep you where you're needed.
He will keep you where you're needed, but sometimes we don't know where we're needed.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's going to take God to push you out of your comfort zone in order for him to show you who he is. I told you I wanted to be an attorney.
Right.
This is not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And even after I graduated with my doctorate degree, I still thought about going to law school because I still wanted my will to happen.
Sure.
You know, but when I got into this field, not trying to toot my horn, but toot, I was pretty good at it, you know, at least from what my clients say. I'm only going based on that. My clients seem to get something out of what I was teaching, get something out of their interactions with me, get something out of their ability to come and have a safe space to talk. They were getting something from me. Yeah. So how could I turn my back on what God put me in to do what I wanted to do and stay on the journey that I want? Now, he probably would have blessed me if I would have still gone that way. Yeah. He probably would have, but that's not where he wanted me to be. He knew that he put healing in me. So I'm supposed to be a healer. Yeah. So that's what I try to do. I try to please him on a daily basis every time I meet. I pray for my clients because I want to make sure God tells me what I'm supposed to do with that client that's before me. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I'm curious, do you ever kind of just, when you're taking those indicated steps, kind of feel that in the room of like, okay, this is the right direction? Yeah. It's so hard to explain that to people that like, it's almost like you can feel it in the room when you just know you're on the track with somebody.
And I think my clients see it too, because I'll sit back in my chair and I'll look at them and I'll be like, and then I'll start talking, especially the ones who, because I do faith-based counseling as well. So especially the ones that I do faith-based counseling with, they know when I got something from them, they know it because they're like, what?
Yeah, download it.
What'd he say?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really, but I agree with you. It's really good when you get that. I can't describe it. I think it's like a freedom or a peace. I don't know.
Yeah. So there's something about the levity that's lifted in those moments. It's like clarity.
Yeah. I agree. Y'all.
It's hot. It is hot in here. I'm wearing a flannel. I don't know
how you got that on.
When you were in Arizona, were you working with clients that would come to the treatment center from all over, or was it mostly? Yeah.
Yes. I think most of them were in Arizona, but I do remember having a few from other states.
Gotcha. Do you see a difference between the way that people go about recovery out there, even the professionals, and the way that they do it here in Texas, or is it pretty similar?
Some of my clients there seem to be eager to heal. Their intentions were different, and their desire was different. I don't want to say it was better or worse, but it was just different. Yeah. And the therapists there, they were really laid back.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were more laid back, and it seemed like they had they were, with that type of personality, they were able to build a different rapport with their clients, which was still healthy and ethical, but it was just different.
Yeah. How long have you been practicing here in Texas?
So I moved here working on my doctorate degree in 2007.
Okay.
And while I was working on my doctorate degree, I was working in the field. And then I left in 2014 and then came back into the latter part of 2015.
Gotcha.
So I've been here since then.
Okay. I just moved here from California in October.
Really?
So my whole career, 11 years up to coming out here was in California. And one of the things I heard all the time coming out here was like, oh my gosh, mental health professionals are just so needed out here. And I'm sure just as you've been rooted here that you've felt that as well, and just kind of the expanse and maybe for clinicians, because clinicians do watch this too. If you're looking to move somewhere, this is the place that's growing.
Oh, yeah.
There's a ton of professionals who know what they're doing, and it's like the wild, wild west. People are growing new opportunities here, but with that comes the need, and not a lot of people. We're in Dallas, so it's relative, but not a lot of people in maybe the rural areas of Texas are yet seeking mental health services. I'm curious if you've seen that.
So I believe there's a lot of people moving here, professionals and just people.
Yeah.
And because of that, there is a dire need, because I don't like waiting lists, so I won't let because I co-own, we don't let our office have a waiting list, because it's enough clinicians for work to go around, and we just, if you need to be on my list and you have to have me, you're gonna be. I've had clients wait a year to see me, and I don't like that, because by that time you could have changed your mind. So I definitely think there is a need for clinicians to be here and practice, but I think we need clinicians who are healthy and ethical, and will that's in this for the people.
For the right reasons.
For the right reasons. So not just because you can have a private practice, or because having a private practice is hard.
It's hard work. Yeah.
It is hard work. It's not for the weak. You have to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So if you are not one of those people who can have a private practice, then go work in a private practice. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Go work in a private practice. It can be a group practice. That way you can focus on the client, because it's hard to do both.
Yeah. Yeah. While also simultaneously, like you were touching on, stay clean and current.
Oh, yeah. I'm using your quotes.
Shoot,
you're a good quoter.
I got some. Sometimes hit or miss.
No, you hit 3 times.
Well, thank you. I get a lot of those from my therapist. I've been working with her every week for 5 years, and I adore her. I love her to death.
Oh, man. You're in therapy.
Yeah.
How long have you been in therapy?
5 years.
Oh, you did say 5 years. I wasn't listening. Sorry.
No worries.
Wow. You know what? I tried to go to therapy, and a couple of years ago, and I wanted to get a male therapist, because before I got married, I didn't take nothing from men. I was really hard on men. So I was like, I might need to work on that, because I am never going to get married doing that. But when I went, he was like, you don't have anything to work on. So I went maybe once, maybe twice, and that was it. But I do believe that therapists need to have a therapist.
Yeah.
I don't have one now, because I'm just a little bit known in the community.
Sure.
So I need
It
to.
was easy to find you. When I was looking, when I was looking, I was like, oh man, there's their info.
Right. So I have to find a therapist that don't recognize me and don't know me. And so I just haven't taken the time to look because I don't know who knows me or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I'm a firm believer in that realm for professionals. It's a staged process. And, I'm in the discharge stage with my therapist. We're talking about going biweekly and then stopping, but it's, that conversation between her and I of like, oh, well, you'll probably reach out from time to time and we'll consult maybe about cases or just how you're doing. But man, when I first got with her, it was a godsend. A lot of things were converging. I was a young clinician. I started in the field really young, and a lot of the pain from like the realizations of the family disease of alcoholism were hitting me really hard. And thank God there's stuff like this. So if you're listening to this, Dr. LaFonya Jones-Hines, her book, Addiction Hurts Everyone. If you're looking for a resource, if you're hurting or in any kind of pain, pick this book up. We'll pick the journal up and the participant's guide. We'll take care of this one. And you're not alone. Is there anything you would add to that, by the way, just as a quick little sidetrack we took?
No, I agree. You are not alone, and you don't have to go through this journey by yourself. You don't have to hide it. It's nothing, because a lot of family members tell me that it was difficult for them to participate in the group because they were embarrassed.
Yeah.
And, if you think about it, it's really nothing to be embarrassed by, because if everybody knows someone that has an addiction to something.
Yeah.
When I say everybody, I mean everybody.
Everybody.
All of us know somebody. So it's not, and a lot of us have them in our family. So it's nothing to be embarrassed by, because it's normal. I hate to say that, but it is.
Yeah, the relative term of normal. Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could make the case, because you and I we like to use our brains these ways. It's like, yeah, it's abnormal technically in the book, but it's observable.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would say is, I'm a person and you're a person that went through it, and we healed.
Yeah. And
I was a kid, so I didn't really have to advocate for myself, because my father did. So, because like I said, I was a teenager, so what was I going to do? I wasn't going to talk back to my mom. I wasn't going to tell her no. I wasn't going to be like, I can't enable you. Who knew that word? And I didn't want my face to get slapped off my face. So, so no, I'm not going to tell her that. So my father had to advocate for us. So I can't even imagine the things and the mental gymnastics that my father had to go through to protect himself, as well as his children who weren't able to advocate for themselves. But to this day, I'm healed. I've talked to my mom about how her addiction impacted me. She apologized, and she was sincere. And I'm not saying she was sincere because of her voice or because of what we talked about. She didn't use again. She stopped. So for me, that was my indication that she was sincere in her apology. Yeah. Now, I don't know if she apologized or talked to my brothers about anything, but me and her had a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. We take the amends and the closure where we can get it on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And she hasn't picked up since. And anytime, now granted, I will, and it's probably because I know about addiction now, but anytime she has like a surgery or, something like that, and they prescribe her hydrocodone or some sort of opiate, I'll say, okay, mama, now this can be addicting. And she's like, well, why do they prescribe it to me if it's addicting? I'm like, because it works if you take it the way it's supposed to be taken, but it can be addicting. And so she'll say, okay, well, and I'll tell my dad too, and he'll say, well, we're only gonna do this round, and we're not gonna get a refill. And she won't. A lot of times she won't even take it. She'll take ibuprofen or Tylenol and stuff, because she doesn't. I'm assuming she doesn't even want to put herself through that, which is another reason why I'm saying that she was sincere in her apology. Because when I say she's changed her life, I've seen my mom grow a lot as a woman and as a mother. She's grown a lot, and I can definitely appreciate the woman she has become. Yes. I appreciate, because my mom, she was never a bad mother. I always knew my mom loved me. I always knew she was there for me. I always knew that she loved me, but she was not there at times, or she was doing whatever at times, and of course that impacted me. But to see the woman that she has become now, it's beautiful. My mom is my angel.
Wow, well, good.
And she sings too, so she just sounds like an angel. I just love it.
Nice. There's something in this about, as I'm listening to you, the dignity that we offer other people, and as kids, we can't step into that. We really have to develop into adulthood to really understand that there's peace in giving other people the dignity to make their own mistakes.
Yeah. And that's what I try to teach the family members.
Yeah.
Like, stop trying to rescue them. Stop trying to save them. Stop trying to live their life for them. If they want to use, they're going to use.
Yeah.
So it's no point in you trying to redirect that, because their logic for why they're using is never going to be a good enough answer for you.
Yeah.
So, I also tell them, stop asking them questions that's going to force them to lie to you, because that's only going to create more emotional gymnastics for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really the delicate balance, no matter how difficult it is, of staying out of the equation when they're actively using.
And I think that's what is a hard thing for family members to do. They want to control their use by making them stop.
Yeah.
They want a reason for why they're using, and there is no reason.
Yeah.
I always say, they've given you a reason, but it's not good enough. They've told you, I just can't stop. They told you, I can stop anytime I want to. They've said, well, you just don't understand. They've given you all of these excuses, but it's still not good enough, because you still don't have your why. And because the only answer to that why is, I'm going to stop, and you see them stop.
Yeah. Well, there's that. And then for those where it doesn't stop, it's like the only other place you're going to find that answer is here.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the internal work that you're going to have to do.
Yeah. There's this funny saying too. It's like, alcoholics' lips are moving. Lying.
Lies. Yes.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah. They're just human, and that was something in my journey I had to learn as well. Is like, there's the distinction we draw, and I can tell that you take the perspective of the family disease, right? And it's like, when we look at it from the framework of a disease, if someone got cancer, we would love them. And one of my friends put it this way. He said, the reason it's hard and we don't embrace as a society the disease, and I want to hear your perspective on this, is because, when someone gets cancer, they don't then go and get plastered drunk, go through your purse, steal your keys, take the car, crash into a wall, and this is why it's so hard to embrace it as a disease. But I'm curious, just kind of as a professional, what your journey has been with kind of educating people on that, and your stance on the scope of it being a disease.
So I do talk about
I'm on to you.
I love it. So I got my analogy from Dr. Kevin McCauley.
Okay.
And he talks about the disease as based on the definition of the medical field. And in the medical field, I got to remember, now I might have to look at my book.
Yeah, no worries.
He talks about it being 3 categories. It has to, okay. I think I found it quickly. Okay, so it has to have, hold on, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find it real quick. So it has to have an organ, it has to have a defect, and it has to have symptoms.
Yeah.
So the organ is the brain, which is the midbrain. The defect is the addiction, the alcohol, drugs, whichever, and the symptoms are the behaviors that happen because of the addiction. And so in the medical field, that's enough to consider it to be a disease.
Yeah.
And The other reason why it's considered to be a family disease is because the family is physiologically affected, psychologically affected, and emotionally affected.
Yeah.
And that's the other reason why it's considered to be a disease. However, the family doesn't realize all of those things, the physiological, psychological, and emotional effects that it has on them. So it's not until they come and see me, they come and see you, that they realize, wait a minute, this is not even my stuff.
Yeah.
This don't even belong to me.
Yeah. Carried shame.
See, I told you got good quotes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. I told y'all he got good quotes.
Well, you and I have been doing this a long time. We know how this stuff goes.
Yes.
And carried shame in the family system. It's you were touching on it earlier when you were talking about, she didn't have any of these problems. When you were talking about the lady, she didn't have any of these problems, but now she's got the high blood pressure and the glucose problems. And I forget the name of the doctor. We talked about her on the show a couple weeks ago, but does the ACE scores, the ACE test, the adverse childhood experiences.
Okay.
And I forget her name. It's unimportant. I'm sure it's important for her, but
but not right now for this analogy.
Yeah, but they started to see that there was another connection they were seeing with the family disease of alcoholism. People that were going to the hospital due to stressors from childhood around the family disease of alcoholism. They were coming in with stress-related diseases that when they would come in, the doctors didn't have any other markers for why this person would be sick.
Wow.
But then when they would do their ACE score tests and other assessments psychologically, they saw, oh my God, they are lighting up for family disease of alcoholism.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's good information to have.
Yeah, it's I used to work at the Salvation Army, which is where I got kind of introduced to some of those studies, and I remember seeing those things, and it opened my eyes as a young clinician. I was like, oh my God, I grew up in an alcoholic home.
Wow.
But also, getting in touch with that it was God's hand, right? Mm-hmm. Like you were touching on earlier.
Yeah. And, I think when you look at that and you look at how society, the trauma that society has gone through and the trauma that was already there before we went through this COVID epidemic and, all of those things, the chaos addiction that people end up developing.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to live a peaceful and stable life if you're always chasing chaos.
Yeah.
And it can come from childhood, because a lot of people are repeat offenders, offenders and defenders. So what happens is you grew up in a house with addiction of some sort, then you get used to that chaos. So as you get older, you create the chaos by either having unstable relationships, acting, having trauma responses, and or becoming an addict yourself.
Yeah. And
it continues to repeat, which is why when you have children, that's why this is for adults, right? Yeah. And the reason why is because children can't advocate for themselves. It doesn't matter how. Now, a teenager can speak up for themselves, but it doesn't mean that they're not gonna get in trouble, have consequences from it. Right. So I try to teach the adults in the home so that they can create the homeostasis in the home, or different homeostasis in the home.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that you drew the distinction there that it can happen in childhood. A decent percentage of it, enough of it does, but that doesn't mean that that's the only time you'd ever be exposed, and that maybe you weren't before, but then in your adult life, because of other extenuating circumstances, now you're around people like that, and like you were saying earlier, it's everywhere you look. Mm-hmm. We all, I always tell my clients, you'll be hard pressed to walk down the street and not run into someone who's either actively using, has actively used in the last couple of days, or a loved one who just lost someone who was actively using. It's how pervasive this disease is in our society today.
Yeah.
And, like you were saying, it's like there are different types of addictions, that could impact these cycles. And some of them get real hard to educate our clients on, like, what if dad had a work addiction? Mm-hmm. The defects are the same.
Yep. Yeah. You do. You have the same consequences. Or what if, mom had a shopping addiction? Mm-hmm. What if she was a hoarder?
Yeah.
I try to teach my couples who are if they're single, that don't have children yet, you want your child to be exposed to the healed version of you. That's not to say that you're going to be perfect. That's not to say that you're never going to be triggered again, but at least on a regular basis, you're operating in the healed version of yourself, and you're able to give that to the world. But if people are just out here just rummaging around in unhealed and unhealthy toxic behaviors, that's why we keep having what we have in this world now.
Yeah. It's funny because there's a couple routes in my mind when I'm like, okay, what direction do I want to go with Dr. Jones-Hines right now? And one of the directions was there's such a division in the conversations today. When you look at the reality, I was talking with a friend earlier, it's like we're so much more connected, but in relationships we're disconnected. And yes. It is palpable.
And you know what? I think one of the reasons why we're disconnected is because and I'll just say as genders, we've never taken the time to understand each other.
Right.
As cultures, we've never taken the time to understand each other. It's almost like we're always in competition with genders, with cultures, with religions. It's always it seems like it's always a competition. And instead of us coming together and doing things for the community and making sure that people have what they need, getting the college education, getting medical treatment, getting just the things that we need just to live and survive. Yeah. We keep dividing things and making it difficult for people and unreachable for some, and it makes for a lot of toxic, I don't want to say relationships.
Yeah. And I like that distinction, right? Because it's all about the relationships. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we used to have a producer on here. His name's Gabe. Shout out to Gabe if you're listening from Washington. He's on an internship right now, but he's a few years younger than me, young African American guy, and we did a series where we had some open discussions on the differences between a young white boy and a young African American guy. Mm-hmm. And we hashed some pretty difficult conversations, and after each time we'd like give each other a hug, and you tell me, dude, I've never had a conversation like that with someone who looks like you, and that's the problem.
Yep. We don't sit down and talk.
Yeah, it's like, we have to hear each other.
Yeah, and I think one of the important pieces that you said was that y'all hugged each other afterwards. Yeah. Having these types of conversations alone is difficult.
Yeah. And
if we can go into these conversations and put our feelings to the side. And sometimes that's hard because you have to hear some hard truths. But if we can put our feelings to the side and understand that this conversation is for us to understand each other and not to keep fighting each other, then we could probably make some progress. Now, granted, I know it's a whole lot of that need to go to this too, but conversation needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just culturally or ethnically, it's also religions. It's also genders. Yeah. Like, it's so many different Like, we just need a big old, microphone in the whole world. Yeah. And just where everybody can hear everybody. You know what I mean? And just everybody, because everybody needs to heal.
Yeah. It's, him and I talked about it from it's about leadership, right, in your life. In my home, on my street, in my community, you will be loved by me. Mm-hmm. And if you're messing around, right, and doing things, I won't hesitate to, if I needed to call the authorities or something, but I'm not going to hate you for it, right. Because in my home, on my street, in my community, you're loved by me.
Right. Right. And that means that if you're loved by me, that means that I need to help protect my community. Yeah. Yeah. And that's whatever that means. Right. So if I have to call the police on you and you go to jail, when you come out, we can still talk. Yeah. Because you were still wrong. I'm holding you accountable to your behaviors, right. And you take responsibility for yours. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we can still hug, dap it up, and
bingo. It's the way communities, I think, now there are a lot of things from way back in the day, mm-hmm. In any area of the world that just need to change for modern times. But that's the way communities always were. You know, it's like you knew everybody. You also knew the delinquent.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were probably your kid or your cousin or your your
Right.
friend, and you didn't hate him just because he was having a hard time and lashing out,
Yeah.
or her. You know, it's like people came together, and it's not that we're not these days, but it was like you were saying. There's so much noise.
And it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
A lot of it is.
Yeah.
And it's not enough of us to at least in Texas, it's not enough of us therapists and psychologists and social workers and life coaches to help.
Yeah.
And we have to, and I think a lot of it too is that people don't know where to get the help from.
Right.
So I think we need to do, as mental health providers, we need to do a better job at informing the community on where they can get the help from, because I know I'm not the therapist for everybody, and I'm okay with that. I am a veteran therapist at this point. I don't get my feelings hurt anymore.
Yeah.
If I'm not your therapist, I'm not your therapist. And I will tell you, if you're not my client, I'm okay with that, because I would rather you find the therapist that's for you so that you can get the help that you need.
Yeah. Now, however, if you're listening to this and Dr. LaFonya Jones-Hines is your type of therapist, you can find her and her practice with the clinicians that work with her at balancebeacon, is it .com?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's balancebeacon.com. We are at 345 West Parkway, Euless, Texas 76040, and our number is 214-396-6503.
Perfect. I have two last questions for you. If you were going to start a mental health theme park, what would be the first ride that you built and why?
I would, that's so interesting because I could see it in my head. I would want to build a brain, because I would want people, and what I would want is for them to be in like this, the little cart or whatnot, and going through the different areas of the brain and stop at the amygdala. Stop. And just stop.
Just
nice. Yes, I want them to stop there, and I want them to spend a little time there. And I think what I would want to see is like things light up. I wish we could put something on their brain that would light their brains up too. But but at least to light different things that happen in that part of the brain, so that they can so that people, because I don't think people understand how the brain operates.
No, I don't think people spend much time thinking about it.
Of course, that's the nerd in me, I guess. But I'm sure you're that way too, so I guess we're both nerds.
Fair enough.
So yeah, what about you?
I told a friend I would do the control coaster, and you can't get off the roller coaster until you've thrown up. It's an exercise in a lack of control.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Who's your favorite childhood cartoon?
Mickey Mouse.
How would Mickey Mouse benefit from coming to see you for therapy?
He would first learn how to not be in this toxic relationship with Minnie Mouse.
Touche.
That back and forth. Stop
push,
that,
pull,
Mickey.
Push, pull.
Yes. Yeah. So, yes.
Bless their hearts.
What about you?
My favorite childhood cartoon would probably be Tommy from Rugrats, if I was pressed on the spot.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And maybe I would, just as he grew, be a safe male figure in his life.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dr. Jones-Hines, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I have definitely enjoyed this conversation, because that's what it felt like, a conversation, not an interview. I don't know if it was supposed to be an interview, but it felt like a conversation.
Well, good. I'm glad.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to those listening, we break the cycle together. We'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We love you. Bye.
Are you ready for a fun and family-friendly